Chapter 5, Zero Repeat Forever by Gabrielle Prendergast. 8th. Muddy death. Someone help me. Help me. What do I do now? Raven. I watched the sky with Topher, neither of us able to sleep. Sometime after midnight, when we hear footsteps crunching down the hill, Topher wriggles out of his sleeping bag and slips an arrow into Tucker's crossbow. But a burst of giggling and a whiff of sweet smoke let him relax. He unloads the crossbow and sets it aside. Xander appears on the path with Loki and Emily, the two Australians. Wisps of smoke trail behind them. I sit up as Xander passes the joint to Topher. "Where did you get this?" Topher asks, taking a deep drag. He passes it to me and I puff on it silently. When it becomes clear I'm not giving it up, Xander produces another one and lights it on the embers of our fire. "Broke into the office," Xander says. "Sawyer and Felix are hoarding medicine in there. And this. They confiscated it from me when I arrived," Loki says in a halo of smoke. Loki looks like a stoner. A typical sunburned and bleach-haired surfer dude. But he's also a hardcore survivalist who can make a fire by rubbing sticks together and eats insects and slugs for amusement. Soon, we're all as high as the silver moon. Emily sits behind me, arranging my tangled curls into a dozen little braids and twirling and tying them with ribbons of dry grass. She's a pale and dreamy hippie chick who paradoxically is also something of a weapons expert. From her outback farm upbringing, with 3 gun-crazy brothers, she taught Tucker to use the crossbow. Then they practiced until his aim was lethal. Not lethal enough, apparently. I never liked having my hair fussed over for longer than a few minutes. When I twist away from Emily, she turns her attention to Xander, making him a crown of pine fronds. He wears it with surprising dignity, like Chinese royalty, a beautiful Ming Dynasty prince. As he starts another tune on his harmonica, I lie back and gaze up at the stars again. By now, we are used to the large, bright ones that move in unexpected patterns and the occasional flashes. Sawyer thinks the Nox are destroying satellites one by one, and space junk that interferes with their ships. This is why our satellite phones stopped working. Our cell phones turn on if we charge them with a solar generator, but apart from reading old emails or looking at photos of people we probably will never see again, they're useless. 10 weeks. It's been 10 weeks. There are 8 of us left. Right now, 5 of us are so wasted, a band of invading Smurfs could paint us blue and eat us. But who cares? I have nothing left to lose. The stars move and move back. One pops in a flash and one shoots out of sight. Yes, like that last beautiful night on Earth. The first group of campers were due to arrive in 2 days. We'd been training, building on skills we already had. Pip and David had to make the most of us since half their crew had been denied work permits due to some kind of immigration screw-up. Self-defense and martial arts was my class. Topher would do canoeing and fishing. Tucker, what else? High ropes and climbing? And zip line, the dangerous stuff. Mandy would teach first aid, Emily weapons and hunting, and Loki botany, maybe what mushrooms to eat, depending on how you want to feel. Xander, a friend of Tucker's, whom we roped in at the last minute after another permit was denied, was down for orienteering. He threw himself into it with a typical zeal. We all did. To avoid a sentence of vandalism and destruction of city property, it was a pretty good deal for Topher, Tucker, and me, and the rest were getting a nice wage. Oh, what fun we were going to have helping kids learn how to survive the zombie apocalypse. Shit, the irony. That night, Tucker and I disappeared down to the lake right after dinner, stripped down to our bathing suits and sparred, old school karate style, on the dock until I was able to knock him into the lake. At the last second, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me down after him. "Illegal hold," I said, spitting water. Hold this, he said, pressing my hand to his crotch under the water. But Xander and Topher appeared on the shore. Have you seen the meteors? Topher said, but of course they weren't meteors. On the second night of the invasion, we hiked up the ridge and watched the repeated blinding flashes from the horizon, waiting each time for the sound wave to reach us like a thumping blow to the chest. We had no word from anyone in Calgary. By the time the phone, TV, internet, and radio were all dead, without ever discussing it, we all came to the silent consensus that Calgary was gone. And with it, Tucker and Topher's parents, Xander's family, and all of our other friends. In the early days, we spoke of those losses as though they were real and confirmed, but eventually we stopped discussing it. Tucker confessed to me that he still thought of his parents as alive. It's easy, he said, which was odd. He was never one to choose the easy path, even when it came to emotions. Maybe he meant it was easier for Topher. As for my parents, they were planning to make their annual drive out to the coast, leaving on the day of the invasion. Maybe if they weren't in an urban area or were able to get off the main roads, they would be hiding somewhere too. Jack was an experienced wilderness camper, and though Mom wasn't a big fan of camping, she knew what to do. But it all depends on what time they left that day and how far they got. I try not to think about it, because there's also a chance that they're dead with everyone else. And everything I wanted to prove to them, everything I wanted to apologize for, everything I promised to fix is gone. 48 hours was all it took. Our world is gone too. We grieve and survive. But for what? I blink away the after image of exploding stars as Topher lies beside me. We have to get out of here, I say. I know. The food is almost finished, and anyway, there won't be enough daylight to properly run the solar for much longer, and we have hardly any fuel. We should have rationed better. I guess we thought we'd be rescued. Or something. We were supposed to shelter in place, remember? More irony. Of all the government advice and instructions I have ignored in my life, that shelter in place is the one I ended up following. I'm pretty sure it was the wrong choice. The fuel will run out before the snow comes, I say. Then we're completely fucked. Hunting is obviously dangerous, Xander offers. I looked up to see that everyone else is facing us and listening. Where can we go? Loki says. I don't know much about this area, but I think Xander and I keep us alive in the wild for a little while, as long as we keep clear of the baddies. We're about a day's hike from the nearest town, Topher said, but Tuck was heading that way. It might be safer to go in the other direction, Xander suggests, toward Calgary. Stay off of the highway, though. Go along the river. There's a kind of tourist resort at, what's it called? In the foothills, right? Maybe people are hiding there. That's what I would have done if I'd been in town, headed to high ground. How long? Emily says. 2 days, maybe? There's a lot of uphill. It depends on what we take with us. Don't you guys think we should go away from Calgary? I asked. Head west toward the coast? Topher gives me a meaningful look. He knows what I'm getting at. We've talked about my parents and where they might be 100 times. We'd never make it across the mountains, not now. And we don't have supplies for such a long hike, Xander says. Hike? Emily snorts. Isn't it like 600 miles? It's smarter to see what's happening nearby, Loki says. We might find supplies, food. We could always come back here. Or head west, I say stubbornly. The four of them stared at me, and I start to feel like we're going to have a vote, and I'm going to end up looking like a dickhead. Fine, you're right. We should look for other survivors around here first. So we should take food and weapons, maybe warm clothes. We'll need them soon. We could have blankets of snow by late September if we live that long. Right, lots of weapons. Everything we have, Topher curls his fingers around Tuck's crossbow. Do you think Sawyer and the rest will go for it, Xander says. I don't care, I say, nothing left to lose. I remind myself, I'm going. I'm not staying here to starve or freeze without even trying. A few cells of weed-addled brain cling to a faint hope that my parents are safe somewhere, and something in me wants to at least try to get back to them. Even if I die on the way, I have to try. because maybe trying will make all the other stuff go away. The suspensions, getting arrested, probation, the judge and his disapproving glare, my utter failure to make something of everything they did for me, and all the things we said to one another that none of us meant. I wanted to make it all better. Tucker would have understood. He knew how important it was. The others see only my surface, tough, reckless, and snarky. I hate to dissuade them of that, even now when a little attitude adjustment might be sensible. But since when am I sensible? I'd rather throw myself into a Knox cooking pot, I add for effect. It may well come to that, Loki said.